Okay, well, it's been a split second for you and a couple days for me. And if I remember correctly, we did the rear wheel, and then we did something else. And we still have to do the front wheel. So here I am. Polish it up a little bit. Got a little Dawn power wash. I'm just putting a little on a clean rag. This is a pretty clean rim. The donor bike was not ridden really hard. It's taken care of. Either that or I already cleaned it and you were watching this twice. But it looks dirty enough that maybe I haven't. There's something on the rim. Yep, a little smooch. Little schnookers, little something or another. Where'd it go? A little blemish. Maybe I can find it. Yeah, it's right here. I don't know if I can get good light on it, but just something that'll catch the pad. So just take some emery cloth and knock it back down. Nice soft aluminum frame or rim. You can just make it flat. Pretty straight. So maybe I had done it. Tires. This is not a high performance build of any kind here. This is just a functional bike. I really like these Michelin ProTech tires. Tons of flat resistance. They roll pretty well. They're a great hybrid bicycle tire. So, one thing I like to do is make sure we know the direction. So that tire is pointed at you. You can look at the tire tread and see it's kind of shaped like an arrow. Skewer always goes on the non-drive side of the bike. So in this configuration, things are going away from me. And I line my valve hole up with the logo. It does a couple of things. First of all, it looks better. It's aesthetically pleasing. It, means you're paying attention to what you're doing. And then also, theoretically speaking, if you do get a flat and you put a little air in the tube and find out where the hole is, it might help you figure out where something poked through the tire if you have the logo as a reference point. And grab some tubes quick. No, I didn't check here. Oh yeah, Cresta. Couple of Presta valve tubes. So I always throw a little bit of air in the tube just to give it a bit of shape. Let's get this out of the way. Okay. Cram your tube up in there. You know, if you have a little bit of volume in your tube, that helps prevent getting any kind of folds or crinkles or whatever. If you get a fold or a crinkle in there, every time that tire goes around, you get a friction hot spot and it'll rub right through the tube eventually. More common than you'd think. A lot of roadside changes aren't done very well. They're done hastily. Or at-home changes with inexperienced repair people. There's a little garbage bin like right there, and I missed both of those boxes. You know, so I just garbage on the floor, which there's kind of garbage all over every floor in this shop. And one employee, and he is as messy as I am. It's not a good combo, but we get by. All right, pop it over, put the valve nut on. It's early in the morning for me, and my compressor hasn't kicked on for the day yet. So I'm not going to get a ton of pressure in these, but enough to fill them up at least, make them somewhat firm, make them rideable. Can always add more later. I think the compressor kicks on just about every one of my videos since I film in the morning, mostly. Okay, let's put these wheels on the bike. Start reassembling. Oh, of course. Oh, this is a 130 millimeter axle and a 135 millimeter bike, and I didn't think of it. Those of you that are smarter than me have been thinking it this whole time, thinking, uh-oh, he's doing it wrong. You can't put road wheels on a hybrid. But I think what I'm going to do is add some spacers to that axle. Oh, well, okay. So I'm not going to just put some spacers on this axle. The problem is that this road bike wheel is 130 millimeter spacing on the axle, and this hybrid bicycle is 135 millimeter spacing back here. It's not that big of a deal to squish things together. It's a steel bike, and you know, whatever, 2.5 millimeters on either side, it squishes together evenly, and nobody would really notice the difference. But all along, putting road wheels on this hybrid or gravel bike has felt wrong to me. You know, it's mostly the rim width, which actually with the rims that were on it isn't a whole lot different. Ultimately, I think what I've decided to do, you know, I even considered putting new wheels on it, but it's not that nice of a specimen. You know, it's not worth it. So I'm going to keep the old wheels, the old 7-speed wheels. That's the other problem we have here, is it's a it was a 7-speed bike. We're putting 8-speed wheels on it, which doesn't matter a whole lot, but the free hubs, 8-speed free hubs are different than 7-speed free hubs. I don't have any used 8-speed hybrid wheels. That would be great for this build. I only have new ones. I don't want to use new ones. So I'm going to use the old original wheels from this bike. And the only thing is that with our 8-speed shifter, we're going to have one ghost click at the end. But if we set the limits right, you won't even, it might be the case where you can't even access that ghost click. So it kind of becomes a moot point. Not ideal, but it works. And that's what I'm going with. And I'm going to go with the 38 millimeter tires then. Okay. So you've already watched me clean wheels. You don't need to watch me clean these other wheels. I'm going to do that and install the tires, and in a blip, I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I got the old wheels back on and some different tires. These are some folding tires that I had. They've got some knobs on them. It says they measure 37. They don't look to be a whole lot wider than 35. You're splitting hairs quite a bit when you're messing with these kind of oddball, 37 millimeter tire sizes. Like, what are you really gaining here? Anyway, I went with them, and I think I'm happy with them. A little bit of a diversion off the path. I'm grabbing the old levers here from the donor bike. And slide them on. See if I can find the other one here in the filthy bench. It's hiding somewhere. Where'd you go? Really? Here it is. How does something that big hide on my bench? What's the matter with me? Yep. So I like a T-handled wrench, and these old levers have a little slot on the side. I'm going to kind of eyeball them for now, just to get them so they don't flop around. See where and how the clamp settles. And then you kind of look at the bars and try to figure out where a natural slopage is. Another thing you can do is take a straight edge. This is always a good idea. And just kind of line things up with your straight edge. And then you can get them even at least. I always do tape at the very end after everything's set up, in case you got to move something. But I'm going to go, bottom of the brake lever is just slightly above the straight line by a 1/4 inch maybe. This one wants to come up a bit. It's just about right. Am I still getting a mic here? Yep. There you go. So the levers are on. Pretty straight. Pull all the cables out. I don't know if we're going to be reusing any of this. I guess the rear brake cable's still pretty long. It could be used in the front. See if I can feed that through. Well, this housing might come in handy. Oh, I can see it wanting to poke through. Wants a little bit of help with a poker tool. There we go. Good, good. All right, let's see here. What do we want to do first? Get some brakes going. We'll put some pedals on it too. I've got some cheapo flat pedals that I use for this sort of thing. Just some generics. You know, they do the trick. And if somebody wants something higher performance, you gotta buy them. Pedals aren't cheap. Good pedals aren't cheap. But these could last a very, very long time. How about that? There we go, we got some pedals. I'm gonna grab a brake cable quick. Get the rear brake cable fed through. So, okay. Clearly not going to be long enough by quite a bit. This one's pretty long. Nice piece of housing here. Long enough. I mean, maybe. Yeah, it looks like it could be. Throw a ferrule on there, a faruli, air compressor. Get that side put in, thread our cable through. Pull the cable tight and anchor it down. Give it a couple test squeezes. Pulling from one side. I'm going to set that cable in there. It's also pulling a lot, so I'm going to pull some more cable through. Okay, I'm gonna let a little cable out, not much. That might have been too much. Feels good. Now we're going to add some tension to this left side. Hopefully there's enough to pull the whole system over so we don't have to start messing around with those pads. I think we're going to have to start messing around with pads. It's close. The wheel looks like it's in there a little crooked. That might help. Pull straight up. Man, it's really good, but not perfect. So here's a little trick I'm gonna do. Okay, so I'm gonna undo everything I just did. And we lube the posts and everything, but sometimes you can like stress the spring back this way. You gotta be careful, it's a good way to break things. But that will add a little tension to this side. There's no tension screw on this side. It's only one side, so and we just need to add some tension. You know, we're kind of bending that spring inside there. Yeah. That made a difference, and all the difference we needed. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think we're gonna have to mess with the pads anyway, though. They're not lined up. So, we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll just do it right now. Got a 10 and a 5. So the 5 goes here to hold the pad. 10 goes in back. Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I feel like these pads are backwards. Anyway. I don't like any of this. We're gonna flip-flop the pads. Nothing is even here. So now when you look at it, you can see the whole system is over this way. I'm just gonna grab new pads too. I know we talked about that in the rear. I decided to keep the old pads. So now I'm taking that tension back out. Gonna let this system do what it needs to do. The new pads are symmetrical, so it really doesn't matter which side you put them on. Too many tools in my hands. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3 lines. You know, these have lines on them. Try to make everything symmetrical if you can. These are, cantilever brakes are definitely more difficult to deal with than linear pull or V-brakes. But we're kind of stuck with them. I also, you know, I don't like to replace perfectly good parts unless I have to, for numerous reasons. But if you put linear pulls on, then we would need to figure out levers and blah, 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 blah. It becomes a compatibility issue. That's the problem with a lot of these conversions is, you know, you're kind of dealing with a hodgepodge of parts. And most of the time you can get away with it, but there's a lot of instances where you change one thing and it affects so many others. So somebody has definitely been working on this, because this is all rounded out and I can't get my wrench in there. It makes it really hard to get this adjustment right. I like my little vice grips can kind of grab on just like that. You see that? You can set it. The jaws grip it really well. These are really handy. There's a Knipex pliers. They're really expensive and they're pretty handy too. Knipex. That's so much better. That was worth doing. I like it. There's no barrel adjuster on this system, so all we have is our hands. So we're gonna get it as close as we can. Just kind of go back and forth until we get it right. So I have this kind of like moderately clamped, and then I'm squeezing hard with the lever to pull a little bit of cable through, and I'm using these fingers to kind of feel how much we're pulling through, and then see if it matches the pull of the right side. And that's how I'm dialing that in. I hope that made sense. Trim our whiskers. So something I want to do now is just kind of get a feeling for these levers and bars, you know, the cockpit. Get this stem on straight. Just kind of, I don't have a saddle, so I can't sit up there, but if you can kind of get the stem straight. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing entirely. Here we go. Yeah, so I just kind of straighten the stem and get the hands on the bars and just feel, I think that's actually going to be pretty good. These aren't the most comfortable levers on the planet. But I mean, I think that's halfway decent. I feel like this one needs to come up a smidge, and this one maybe out. That's how I adjust that. But I don't know. Sometimes if you close your eyes and meditate on it, it comes to you. Yeah, this one feels like it needs to come up. And again, the T-handled 5 is the way to go. Peel a little bit of the hood back. Get your wrench in there. I can feel it's rounded out. Oh man. It's hard to get purchase. There we go. Maybe the 3-way will fit. Yeah, the 3-way fits. That's a good tool. There we go. So up a smidge. And then get your angle right. I think it's got to come up just a smidge more. Pretty good. I'll just double check this one for tight. It is. Take a closer look at things. How do you feel about it? Okay, we're going with that. Okie dokes, folks. Let's take a risk here. I found a really clean shift cable, and I'm gonna take my good, this is a very fancy hose and cable cutter. It cuts things very, very clean. I don't know if you can, how well you can see that, but when you're reusing cables, it's good to get a clean cut. Oh, and it's going to be a short one, so let's go put it on the front. I'm going to feed it through so you don't start fraying things. Now, I just love how cantilever brakes feel when they're set up. We got to start figuring out the length. So I always find an old piece of housing and put it in its home. This is brake housing, but it'll give us an idea of how much, what kind of length we're looking at here. So it's going to go there on the frame, and it's home right here. And it's got to come up and come out of here. So we need to add about that much, about the length of my index finger extra. So here's my 4mm shift housing, and then about a finger length extra. And I always give it an extra ½ inch just in case. And we'll check it on the bike, and if that's right, if this is right, then we just cut the same length for the back. Grab a couple ferrules for it. I try to smush the ferrules on all the way. It seems like no matter what I do, there's always compression that, you know, finds another few millimeters and requires some tweaking. So again, this is going to be a tricky thing. I should probably be putting in an inline barrel adjuster. I have some. I guess it's not that difficult. Oh, well. Okay, so we're doing the front. I measured to the rear, but it doesn't matter. These should be the same. Okay, and this seems a little long to me. So we can cut off a little bit. Yeah, we can cut off a good couple inches actually. And I'm going to do that and put in an inline barrel adjuster. We don't have to on the rear because we have one on the derailleur. I'm going to put the barrel adjuster up here. This is what it looks like. And it adds about 1 inch as well. So I'm going to chop out a section, the middle of it. I'm going to need some chopping out that much, which is to take care of that extra from my terrible measuring. Then we got to put ferrules on the end of the 2 pieces. Then this little guy's going first. This is I'm gonna do all this work and then find out I don't have nearly enough cable. Let's hope not. And then we put our barrel adjuster in. And then the second piece of housing. And check again. Length is still a little long, I think. We're gonna need all the help we can get. I'm gonna take it off of the little piece. Took about 1 inch. You know, the more you futz with this used cable, the greater your chances of fraying it become. Especially if you're not careful. Yeah. Whoa. Ah. Why am I struggling all of a sudden? There we go. That looks good. Of course, I haven't measured the other piece of housing, so I just grabbed the box. It's going to be about that long. Did I cut it too short? No, I think it's good. And we'll get a nice, fresh, brand new cable for the rear. You know, when you do these conversions, you can generally use the old rear cable on the front if it's not too rusted. I think the cables that I took off this bike were all pretty rusted. I just happen to have a really nice shift cable from a different project laying on the bench that I found, so I used it. Yeah. I mean, that looks pretty even. I like to have a little bit of a gap there, if possible. Sometimes you get lucky and find a good piece of housing for the rear loop as well. Yeah, it's perfect. With these 7-speed drivetrains, you get a lot of wiggle room and indexing, and the adjustments are much easier than with 9, 10, 11 speed. Things have to be a little more precise. Clean cables, new housing. You know, the housing will actually develop grooves in the inside of it that change the whole system. Stretch that cable out a little. You can do it manually. That compresses all your new ferrules, compresses the housing a little bit, and stretches the brand new cable. All things help with adjustment down the road. A little bit of a kink right there. Try to bend that out. And cable's starting to fray, but it's a clean fray. You can wind it back up, twist it back up. Thread it through the cable guide in the bottom, and up, and find its clampy home. Then we need a 9mm wrench, which is on the filthy bench somewhere. Found it. That's good, folks. We got this thing cabled up. Gonna give it a trim and a trim. Couple of tips. So the chain is just barely long enough, or short enough, I should say. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little slow. I'm going to add a little tension. Okay, so there's that ghost shift. I'm going to have to adjust that out. Okay, so we find our high limit screw, which is the upper one on this, or the low limit screw, my bad, it's the lower one here. We're just going to turn it all the way till it touches. Okay, now that should prevent it from shifting. Yeah, so you can't even, the lever won't even try to find the 8th gear. So essentially we just made this a 7-speed. It's working fine. Don't tell anyone. Oh, and this is not functioning. Something is wrong with the front cable. So we're going to cut the tip off, which is starting to fray. And we've already cut the length. We should have checked that before we did all the trimming, because now we have a frayed cable that's been clamped, and it doesn't want to be clean, except it just went clean. So it looks pretty clean now. See if I can figure out, I think I messed up wiring it through the shifter. No? Okay, now it's working. Okay, it's working now. Sometimes it takes a couple tries. Okay. Yeah, I should have stretched my cables and everything before I trimmed them and put the tips on, because clearly something was wrong here. I got way more cable now. There was some slack in the system that I didn't pull out or discover. So now we're gonna test things a little bit, all the way down. Uh-oh. We're discovering compatibility issues here, I think. Maybe I need a road front derailleur. Yeah, we have a compatibility issue. This shifter does not want to work with this front derailleur. I'm gonna pause things and think it through here. Once again, it's been a couple days for me and just a split second for you. But what I decided to do was take the original triple road derailleur from the donor bike and put it on this bike. But this clamp here is $34.9 for an aluminum bike. So I had to order the wrong size. Is this the wrong size? It looks like the wrong size. No, it's the right size. I had to order 31.8 for this here steel bike. We're just gonna double check. I should have done this before I started recording. And yeah, we're good. Okay, so these braze-on front derailleurs are kind of nice as long as you have the right adapters in your life. And I was ordering braze-on adapters anyway for a personal build. And I really like these. These are nice and light and, I don't know, some generic brand. This looks really good with this black derailleur. But for my personal build, I need a silver one and couldn't find one in the right size and everything. Kind of frustrating. So I bought a different one. But anyway, kind of killed two birds with one stone. Over here, looking for my 9mm, which seems to have jumped ship. Nine mil. Get the cable out of there. So there's two ways to do a front derailleur. You can either break the chain, which is a little cumbersome, or there's a little screw on the cage, generally, right here. You can take this screw out. It's just a little guy, and then watch out for the washer. Get me in. Yeah. So a little screw and a washer, and then you can get the chain through there. So we're going to do that to both of them. Take that out. No washer on this one. I'm still not really understanding the incompatibility of the derailleurs in this shifter. I think it should work. Maybe there's something I'm missing. If anybody knows, this is a 7-speed STX group set, you know, mountain set from back in the day. And it's a Sora triple. And hopefully this works with this crank and we don't run into more I'm sort of in guess mode at this point. I don't know. You can probably look a lot of this stuff up. Sometimes the rabbit holes of internet research on compatibility with bike stuff takes more time than just trial and error for me. And since I do this stuff enough, I don't mind buying parts that I may not use immediately, because I'll use it someday, as long as I don't misplace it. Alrighty, let's hope we got enough cable. It's kind of hard to grab it. Need my needle nose. Yeah, plenty of cable. Okay, that's here now. We'll see if we can get this. Ooh. That washer is really small, a little tricky. There's a little groove for it to sit in though. But get everything to line back up here and catch a thread. Come on. There it is. Perfect. Okay. Gonna set some limits here. I'm gonna set the inner cage because we're in the low gear, and then I'm just going to back out the high limit a smidge, retighten my cable. Now, all right, so there's our one. Oh, and this isn't working either? What the hell? Yeah, see? Well, maybe I just need to adjust the limit. Why isn't... That's not the right... I don't remember which one's high and which one's low. Okay. Just need to tighten the cable a little bit, which is nice because we put in that inline barrel adjuster. This is why we did it, to really... Hey, look at that. It's working like a charm. I don't know which is which here. Okay. So there's the high limit. Make sure we don't have any rubbing. Sounds like the brake is rubbing a little. That is shifting admirably. What a nice, satisfying mechanical win that is. We are past it. We've solved the problem. Problem solving, puzzling. It's, I think, why I do this. It's really satisfying to me to get from here to there with situations like that. took a little bit. When you're doing these conversions, be patient with yourself. You'll get there eventually. Let's see, what's rubbing. Get a little tiny bit of a, yeah, it's the, what you call them on the tires. What are those called? The whiskers, tire whiskers. Yeah, they're really bad on this side. So I'm just kind of going through with a diagonal cutter and I don't know. I'm just going to cut them off. There aren't a ton of them. Just enough to be a nuisance. Okay. Looks like it's pulling more from this side anyway. Make a quick adjustment there. I mean, it's still rubbing a little bit. I'm gonna adjust the pad down a little bit. There. Now we're silent. I tell you what, I can already tell how much I'm gonna love how this bike rides, just even in the stand. Just a really great geometry, great tubing, solid wheels. I kind of like these tires even. Not much for knobby tires. I just don't think we need them most of the time. You know, most of the time it's the gravel is just rocks sliding over rocks. It's not your tire sliding. And so these knobs don't make a whole lot of difference. I suppose on like a wet packed gravel, or even I guess any kind of dry packed gravel, these side knobs will help. But customers like it. They think that, you know, if you're going to be on dirt or gravel, you need knobby tires, and I suppose. But I've never had much of a problem getting around on slick tires. Alrighty then, are we ready for bar tape? Is that where we're at? Almost ready for bar tape. So I like to wait on bar tape until everything's confirmed, which means test ride. And I can't test ride this bike without a saddle. So I had this really nice Velo Breeze saddle. I don't know if you can even still get these. I haven't looked, but it used to be my go-to at the shop. I don't know what changed, but I really like these saddles. And I've been using it on a trainer in another place that is no longer part of my life for good reasons. And so in the move, this saddle became available, and I was like, I know the bike. I'm thinking of this bike like I'm going to keep it, and it's not something I need, but it's, you know, I think when I first started out 7 or 8 years ago, I'd have been really stoked about this build for myself. This is my kind of thing. I've had a fun, very, very fun trajectory as this, you know, kind of hobby, and building bikes like this became my life, my profession. And I think I'm gonna try to do an entire episode where I focus on that concept, maybe even a series. But, you know, I've been a bike mechanic for many years, working at shops, but I've also had like real jobs and when I got back into it, I was really attracted to cyclotouring and randoneering and that kind of thing, long distance camping. And so I started getting into like 80s Japanese touring bikes, and I built up an old Schwinn touring bike, had it repainted, or I built up a couple of like endurance road bikes and enjoyed them, and then started the bike business, and then started kind of advancing and having custom bikes built and that kind of thing, spending some serious money on really fancy stuff, but you don't really have to. It all kind of works the same. I don't necessarily practice what I preach, but I certainly started out practicing what I preach. Well, look at that. So this under tape, just to hold the cables in place, doesn't have to be anything great because it gets all wrapped up with bars, but man, that's a really good looking, this is a good looking cockpit, I think. And everything's really neat and tidy. All right, I'm gonna give this thing a test ride quick. Oh yeah. Woo, that's a low gear. Really great range of gearing. All right, we can start wrapping the bars. Got some new bar tape here. I guess I did save the old bar tape, but now we're already doing this. So I'll grab this stuff out of here. Electrical tape and a scissors. Try to keep those handy. Guess I got pouches. I don't need the bar cap yet. Okay. So these old shifters are kind of nice. You can use the hoods to hold that little strip in, just like that. Oop, the other side didn't hold. I always start down here and give one wrap, and then there's usually a logo or some sort of design, and I just kind of pick a spot, and essentially I go, the midpoint where the edge of the tape. That's my general rule of thumb, and if it does have a logo, I try to cover it up so it's as generic as possible, which, it's up to you. If you're a logo person, then show it. I'm not a logo person. I prefer to have 0 logos, unless it's a really cool logo. Like one of my own, or something that I consider to be special, like Waterford or some other local custom, something special. All right, make the turn here. I don't know how to explain what I just did there. I just kind of am in automagic mode here, since I've done this once or twice, but this whole time I'm just lining up the middle ridge here with the edge of the old strip. Always on the back side of it too, not on the inside. You know, always on the back side. And it usually works out pretty well for me. This feels like we're gonna be a little short. Yep, so we're a little short. I wanna be out here. So I'm gonna need to find some space. I usually don't unwrap all the way down to here, but we only need a half an inch or so. So I come back a few steps, make a mental note of it for the other side. And, you know, if you just grab a 1/16 of an inch on each one, and you do that 8 times, you get your half an inch. I might need more than that. We'll see. Trial and error, folks, trial and error. You get there eventually. All right, that's cutting it pretty close, but okay, it's acceptable. So when you get to this point, I've seen this done a couple ways. The way I do it is I hold it straight out, and then I imagine a straight line with my brain, my eyes, and then I cut along that straight line. Okay. And then when you wrap it, that makes a straight line. And then I find the edge of my tape. So the first one I do, I pull really tight. I stretch it out, I really smush everything together and go around once or twice. Then the finishing one, it's right around the edge. Try to get it nice and clean. And then I always finish it underneath. Whoop, done. Nice and clean. It's not the best I've ever done, but it's also not the worst. That, my friends, is good enough for who it's for. If you don't drop the bar plugs 14 times, you're doing it wrong. And then we just do the same to the other side. Okay. There we have it. So there we have it, bike farmers. This is, I think, my very first gravel bike conversion. And, whoop, put the bar plug in there. I didn't drop it 14 times. Yeah, I think it turned out just great. Rides well. Certainly looks cool. Very nice, TIG welded, true temper OX, made in America. Made right here in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Just 10 miles away from me. We love it. I think the important thing with these conversions is be patient, enjoy it, enjoy the ride. Does it make a whole lot of sense? I don't know, it's up to you. I think from a hobbyist, learning, creative, having fun, trying something new, kind of standpoint, you bet it makes sense. Economically, it's a lot of work, a lot of messing around. I'm not going to sell this bike for more than I would if it was left as a flat bar. But somebody might get into it. It certainly would make an excellent commuter bike. Riding around in a city, just a really great commuter bike. Nice all around, just cruising down the bike path. Very, very nice, versatile bike. Just switching the tires out, having 2 sets of wheels. Could really do anything with this thing. So I'm happy with how it turned out. If you like this and want to see more of this content, please let me know in the comments. Give the channel, subscribe to the channel. Click the notifications so you know when new videos are coming out. And like the video. All of that stuff helps. I want this channel to grow. I want it to be something that I focus on in my life. I want to share my skill set with you and hopefully entertain you while I'm doing it. And yeah, just thank you so much for tuning in and helping me out with this. I will see you next time with the next project.